They didn't invite me on the family trip, but sent me the photos with my face cropped out. I remember the day the group chat exploded with excitement about the family trip. My phone buzzed nonstop, except my name was nowhere to be found. Just can't wait, Olivia, followed by heart and beach emojis. I stared at the screen, hoping it was a mistake, that someone would realize I was missing, but the silence was deafening. No oops, forgot you, no maybe next time, just blank space where I should have been. Weeks later, the photos came, blue skies, golden sands, laughter frozen in pixels. I searched desperately for myself in every picture, a trace, a shadow, anything. Then I saw it, my silver bracelet on Olivia's wrist in one picture. The same bracelet Dad gave me on my 10th birthday. It sparkled under the sun. Worn by the sister who had replaced me in every way, I felt my breath catch. The bracelet was my tether to the family I thought I belonged to. Now it was a cruel reminder that I didn't. They erased me from the trip, but left my shadow behind, scrolling through those images. I felt both invisible and painfully visible, a ghost haunting memories I was barred from making. I wanted to shout, to make them see me, to remind them I existed. But the family chat was a closed door, filled with curated smiles and edited stories. I wondered if they realized what they'd done, or if excluding me was so normal, it was invisible even to them. The bracelet, once a symbol of love, now felt like a token of their indifference. A small silver chain with a charm from Dad that now belonged to a stranger in my place. That night, I kept staring at the photo, waiting for a sign that they cared, but all I heard was silence. So I packed a bag, not for a trip, but for a new beginning. Growing up, our family always felt like a staged play, with Olivia cast as the lead and me shuffled to the background. Mom made sure her spotlight shone brightest on Olivia. The daughter who laughed loudest, spoke first, and always seemed to be the favorite. Me, I was the quiet one, the one who kept her feelings tucked away, hoping to avoid their notice. At dinner tables, Mom asked Olivia about her day, her dreams, her latest plans. I waited for my turn, but it never came. When I tried to share small victories, they were met with distracted nods or swiftly changed subjects. I learned early that my voice was optional, easily ignored without consequence. Olivia got birthday parties with themes, balloons, and countless gifts. Mom posted every moment on social media, tagging Olivia and her friends in a flood of photos. My birthdays were acknowledged with a quick text or a generic card, always late, always lacking warmth. The contrast stung in ways I couldn't voice. School achievements were another arena of imbalance. I worked hard, earned scholarships, stayed out of trouble. Olivia struggled with attendance, grades, and responsibility, yet Mom cheered her on, calling her free-spirited and full of potential, while my success was expected, even resented. Every family gathering was a reminder Olivia's opinions carried weight. Mine were overlooked. If I expressed disappointment, I was told I was too sensitive or making things up. They saw me as a problem, a shadow, not as a daughter who deserved to be seen and heard. Even Dad, who often remained silent, never intervened. His idea of peace was ignoring the growing divide. When I asked for support, he'd say, "Keep the peace, Emma," as if my pain was less important than family harmony. I moved out early, hoping distance would bring respect. Instead, it widened the gap. Olivia took over my old room. Photos of her smiling in my place circulated among relatives, reinforcing my absence. Yet, I kept hoping for change. I sent messages, gifts, calls. The responses were brief, polite, distant. I was part of the family only when convenient. The bracelet, a small silver charm from Dad, was one of the few tangible connections left. It symbolized the childhood I clung to, the love I hoped to reclaim. Seeing it on Olivia in those photos was a blow. This was the family I was born into, full of love for one, silence for the other, the family that celebrated one daughter's life and quietly erased the other's existence. And in that silence, I learned to live without them. The first signs were subtle, almost invisible to outsiders. At family dinners, Mom would ask Olivia detailed questions about her work, her friends, her dreams, while I sat across the table, fading into the background. When I tried to join the conversation, my words were met with quick changes of topic or forced smiles. It felt like I was speaking into a void. At holiday gatherings, Olivia's laughter echoed through the house, drawing all attention. I became the invisible guest, the one whose presence was tolerated but rarely acknowledged. Mom would gush over Olivia's latest achievements, while my accomplishments were met with silence or vague compliments, I noticed how photos were taken. Olivia always centered, the star of every snapshot. My face was often cropped or blurred out in group pictures, as if digitally erased. It wasn't a mistake, it was intentional exclusion. I started to expect it, but it still stung. Conversations about family plans happened without me, trips, celebrations, major decisions, all made in whispers behind closed doors. I learned to listen from the sidelines, to absorb exclusion without protest. At school events, Olivia was cheered loudly. When I received awards, the applause was muted. The congratulations half-hearted. My successes were expected, hers were celebrated. It was a quiet message. She was the favorite, I was the background. I found out about the family trip months before through a casual comment, not an invitation. No one called to ask if I could come. Instead, they made plans with Olivia, their golden child, and pretended I wasn't part of the picture. At one point, I tried to confront Mom about the imbalance. She brushed me off, saying, "Olivia needs more support right now." That phrase became a shield to justify every slight, every cold shoulder. Dad never stood up for me. His silence was compliance. He seemed relieved to avoid conflict, leaving me alone to navigate the invisible walls they built. Every message, every gesture, every omission was a red flag I learned to recognize but never learned to challenge. It was clear I wasn't just overlooked, I was deliberately erased. The day the family trip photos arrived, I felt a tight knot in my chest, the kind that starts small but spreads and chokes every hope inside you. My phone buzzed with notifications, laughter, emojis. Inside jokes. I opened the album slowly, searching desperately for a glimpse of myself. There was nothing, not a face, not a shadow, not a trace. Just blank space where I should have been. Scrolling through each photo, I found Olivia's radiant smile everywhere. She was at the center of every group shot, her arm around Dad or Mom, glowing in the sunlight, soaking in the attention that had been so long denied to me. My absence wasn't accidental, it was a message, a broadcasted erasure, sent to remind me I was not part of their chosen moments. Then my eyes caught the glint of something familiar on Olivia's wrist, a silver bracelet that had once belonged to me. Dad had given it to me on my 10th birthday, a small charm bracelet with delicate links and a tiny star pendant. I had worn it every day until I moved out, believing it symbolized a bond that could never break. Now, that bond gleamed on the sister who had replaced me. I stared at that bracelet, feeling my breath hitch. It was as if they had cropped me out of the photo but left my soul behind, dangling on someone else's wrist. The betrayal was not just in my exclusion, it was in turning my memories and tokens of love into props for someone else's narrative. They erased my presence but paraded my past. I sat there, silent, overwhelmed by the humiliation. This wasn't just a missed trip or a forgotten invitation, it was a public spectacle of rejection. They had taken what was mine, the memories, the symbols, and handed them to someone else, as if they were gifts to be flaunted. I wanted to scream at the screen, to demand answers, to make them see the pain they had inflicted. But all I could feel was the crushing weight of silence, the cold realization that no apology was coming. The family chat was alive with messages, plans, and laughter. No one addressed my absence. No one acknowledged the hurt behind the cropped faces. The vibrant images felt like a silent agreement to erase me completely. For days, I kept the photo open on my phone, staring at the bracelet gleaming in the sun. It was a cruel souvenir of a childhood I had lost, a love I was denied, and a place I would never reclaim. They sent me pictures to remind me I was invisible. The bracelet became a symbol, a painful emblem of the love and belonging they gave away. I felt like a ghost haunting moments I was never meant to inhabit, a shadow lingering where light was reserved for others. One night, I took the bracelet off my wrist. The cool metal slipped through my fingers, heavy with memories and sorrow. I placed it carefully inside a small velvet box, the kind you keep for precious things. This was precious, my childhood, my love, my pain. Locking the box, I made a silent vow. This wasn't just jewelry, it was my history, my pain, and now my power. I wouldn't let them use it as a weapon against me anymore. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I simply closed the box and put it away. For now, the betrayal was loud enough. My silence would be louder. The days after the trip photos arrived, I felt the walls closing in around me, the silence of their exclusion pressed down like a heavy fog. I stopped answering calls, stopped checking messages. Each notification was a reminder of what I was missing, a digital void where my name never appeared. At work, I sat through meetings with a pounding headache, trying to focus while my mind replayed those images over and over. The laughter, the sun, the bracelet on Olivia's wrist, it haunted me. I wanted to scream, but my voice was trapped inside. I avoided friends. I didn't want to explain the ache that had nothing to do with distance or time. It was deeper, sharper, a wound inflicted by those who were supposed to love me unconditionally. I wasn't just left out, I was erased. One night, I curled up on my couch, clutching the velvet box with the bracelet inside. The weight of it felt like a stone in my chest. I cried quietly, letting the tears fall for the daughter they never chose. The loneliness was suffocating. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of indifference, screaming for help but hearing only my own echo. My therapist noticed the shift. She said, "This kind of hurt cuts deep because it comes from those we expect to protect us." I nodded, barely able to speak. I stopped journaling. The words didn't come anymore. The pages were blank mirrors reflecting a girl who no longer recognized herself. I replayed every memory, searching for a place where I belonged. But the answers were always the same. I was the forgotten daughter. I dreaded every family event, knowing I'd be the invisible guest again, the one whose presence was tolerated but never celebrated. Friends tried to reach out, but I pushed them away, afraid they'd see how broken I felt. Every night, I stared at the ceiling, wondering if I was the problem or just invisible by design. I found solace only in small rituals, lighting a candle, holding the bracelet, whispering promises to myself. The pain was raw, but it was also a turning point. Sometimes, you have to hit rock bottom to find solid ground. I realized I couldn't wait for them to include me. I had to find my own way out of the silence. After months of numbness, something shifted inside me. I realized I was tired of waiting for validation that would never come. I began writing again, not for them, but for myself. The words poured out like a river breaking free from a dam. It was messy, raw, but it was mine. I wrote about the loneliness, the erasure, the invisible pain I carried. I didn't sugarcoat the hurt or soften the edges. I wrote with fierce honesty, unafraid to name the wounds they left open. For the first time, my voice belonged to me. I shared pieces of my story with close friends. Their tears, their hugs, their belief in me were a balm to my fractured spirit. I found a community of women who had been silenced too, who understood the ache of being forgotten by those who should love you most. I started therapy again, finally allowing myself to grieve the family I wished I had, not the one I was born into. My therapist helped me see that their neglect was about them, not me. I set boundaries. I stopped answering calls when the tone wasn't respectful. I declined invitations I knew would reopen old wounds. I chose peace over pretense. The silver bracelet, once a symbol of love lost, became a talisman of my resilience. I wore it daily, a quiet reminder that my worth wasn't determined by their acceptance. They erased me, but they couldn't erase my strength. I began to envision a future where I was the center of my own story. I booked a solo trip, something I'd never done before. I made plans to reconnect with parts of myself I'd buried. I shared parts of my journey online, hoping my words would reach others trapped in silence. The responses were overwhelming: messages of thanks, stories of shared pain, encouragement. Lily tried to reach out once, but I didn't answer. It was time to protect my peace. Mom called twice, her voice tinged with false concern. I kept my distance. My healing wasn't theirs to control. For the first time, I felt the weight lift, not completely, but enough to breathe again. I stopped waiting for them to see me. I started seeing myself, and that made all the difference. I didn't send angry texts or dramatic emails. I didn't post bitter messages on social media. Instead, I chose silence, the kind that speaks louder than words. I stopped responding to their calls, messages, and invitations. The silence was my shield, my refusal to be invisible any longer. When Olivia posted photos of the next family event, I didn't react, I didn't comment. I let her words and pictures float in the void. Untouched by me, that absence unsettled them more than any confrontation could. They expected obedience. I gave them absence. The silver bracelet stayed on my wrist every day, a reminder of the childhood they stole and the woman I was becoming. It was mine, not theirs to gift or erase. Wearing it felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I published a collection of essays, raw, honest stories about family, betrayal, and self-worth. I didn't mention names, but everyone who mattered knew who it was about. The book wasn't revenge. It was recognition. At the launch, I read a passage about being erased but choosing to exist anyway. The room was silent, save for soft tears and quiet applause. I stood steady. No need for approval, just presence. Dad sent a brief text, "Proud of you." I didn't reply. It was years too late, and words without action meant nothing. Mom called, desperate to mend bridges. I didn't answer. This was my boundary. Firm and unyielding, I wasn't their background music anymore. I was my own soundtrack. I mailed a copy of the book to their house, unmarked. With a single note inside, "You gave me silence, I gave you a voice." It was the last gift they would receive from me. That night, I locked the door behind me and felt lighter than I had in years. The past was still there, but it no longer owned me. I was free. Months passed, and I began to live fully in the space I carved out for myself, no longer chasing their approval. I focused on building a life rooted in authenticity and self-love. The silence that once suffocated me became a canvas for new beginnings. I found joy in small things: a morning run, a book club with friends who saw me, laughter that wasn't tinged with sorrow. I celebrated my victories quietly but proudly, no longer needing their applause. The silver bracelet remained on my wrist, polished and shining. It was no longer a symbol of loss but of resilience, a talisman of a journey from invisibility to self-worth. One evening, I sat by the window, watching the sun set, the city lights flickering on. I pulled out the velvet box that held that bracelet. For so long, and I opened it, looking at the delicate links one last time. I wrote in my journal, "They erased me from their memories, but I never forgot myself." The next day, I gifted the bracelet to a close friend, a woman who had helped me heal. I told her, "Carry this as a reminder that even in absence, we find strength." They cropped me out of the photos, but I framed my own story. I walked through life with my head held high, knowing that belonging starts within. The family I was born into could never define my worth. The past no longer held power over me. I was the author of my present and the architect of my future, and when I see a photo without me in it, I no longer feel invisible. I feel liberated, because I took the hint and I chose to leave.